I'm ready. All right, so obviously I'm sitting over here on the right-hand side, the normal passenger location for all of us Americans. Steering wheel. Hey folks, welcome back to another vlog. On this episode, we got two things that are happening, and first and foremost, I want to say thank you for watching the vlog. We definitely have a lot of fun with what we're doing here, and appreciate you guys being a part of it. Any questions, just throw their questions down below. We'll do our best to answer everything. But two cool things going on today. First is we're talking about this truck over here behind us, and it is the right-hand drive India truck. Second thing is we have a special guest, my daughter, Ireland Wilson, comes in here quite a bit to work, answer phones, and help out. She's 15 years old, all homeschooled. We took her completely homeschooled, what, like 2 years ago, I think? Doing amazing. She's gonna be graduating high school here in another year or so. Primarily what she's doing today is watching the master here, Jason, doing his vlogging stuff and learning from him on how to draw out some questions and answers out of me. He does a good job of that, so she's kind of watching that. She's gonna be applying that to her work. She was just offered a job as tour manager, and she's gonna eventually start going into management of the Aqua Dolls as well as another punk rock band. She's gonna be doing some vlogging on her own when she goes on tour with the band and helping them out and getting a little bit more exposure for them. Definitely excited to see you behind the camera for with our stuff, but also with the Aqua Dolls. And I'm gonna miss you in about a week when you go on tour, but I'll be at all those shows. So love you. So now getting into the truck. So we've got Duramax conversion, upgraded cooling package, right-hand drive going into it. Actually, I should say rework of the right-hand drive, fixing a bunch of issues with it. Overall, full transformation of one of the only Hummers in India. I'm told there's only one. If there's more, let me know, comment below, because maybe there are more, but I have been told by the owner that he has the only one in India. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. One thing I haven't mentioned is the air ride suspension. The owner of this truck, very hands-on with this truck. He drives it, does a lot of off-roading with the truck. He's in a wheelchair. So what we did was we created the suspension kit for him. And we've done this quite a few times in the past. And I think the first one we did was probably like maybe 17, 18 years ago. Pretty simple design. Full air ride suspension with airbags down here, and then obviously the shocks on there. What that does is it gives you the ability to inflate or deflate the bags and adjust the ride height. So you can go from completely flat out, no suspension at all, full drop, and lower that by about 7 inches. Or you can increase it back up above stock ride height and get that back or even more. So now I've heard people in the past say, oh, that's ridiculous. You know, that's a street vehicle. You never want to take that thing off-road. I beg to differ, because I've taken our old truck off-road with the air ride suspension, and it's pretty cool because I can inflate the truck and actually increase about 2.5 inches of ride height out of the truck and get up and over rocks and boulders that my buddies were getting hung up on, which is really cool. And I go up and over those rocks, deflate it back to the correct ride height, and away I go. But so it does have a lot of off-road capabilities out of it. But this is primarily set up to drop that suspension out, so you can hit a button on his key fob, it drops the whole suspension, come up to the truck, get in, throw his wheelchair in the back, and then inflate it back up to the stock ride height, and away he goes. So really cool functionality out of that air ride suspension for him. Next, obviously you can see we've got the Duramax engine in there, and we'll get into that in just a minute. We're actually going to lift the body back off the truck. So we set the body back on, we're checking clearances for the right-hand drive. One of the issues that we had was it was originally converted by somebody in India. There's some issues with it. So we're fixing all those little issues, converting it over to a much more reliable system, a little bit safer system too. So we'll lift the body up in a few minutes, but let's come over here. You can take a look at the inside of the truck and see what that right-hand drive looks like. Obviously, I'm sitting over here on the right-hand side, the normal passenger location for all of us Americans. Steering wheel setup, a lot like the factory unit. It was cut out. The bracket that comes down that holds the steering column in place was cut out and just transferred over. So that was done fine. There's no issues with that. We're gonna check that it's welded on correctly because there's really just a couple bolts in. We want to make sure it's not going to loosen up over time. That could be catastrophic. Really going through all the steering components and mechanisms that are controlling the brakes, but also you can see this bar that runs across here. That's actually the brake lever. So this, I'm not sure if you can see it here, but Jason will film this side over here, and you can see like a whole bracket that comes down, and then you can push on the brake here, and I'm not sure if you can see that rotate, but that's the actual brake mechanism. You've got a rod that goes all the way across to the other side, which is fine. It's actually fairly robust. I personally don't have any issues with it. It's a little abnormal, and you could transfer over some of the braking system over here, but in this truck, because it's so tight, I just think that this is probably a better setup as opposed to transferring over the whole master cylinder over here and all the braking system. And then obviously the throttle, that's easy. It's all fly-by-wire. So that's gonna go over to the new Duramax engine that's going in place. And that's pretty much it, pretty straightforward. They did an okay job on it, but there was some huge safety concerns that we have as far as the steering column, the steering components. The biggest issue is this truck has an offset engine. I'm not sure if you know that or not. The engine's actually offset over towards the passenger side, and now it's the driver's side, which complicates things for a right-hand drive vehicle because of that. They did that for a couple reasons. One is the input for the differential sits up really high because of those portal axles. The portal axles actually drop the output shafts going out to the wheels, giving you an increased lift to the truck. So you have this, your front differential that sits up a lot higher than most vehicles. Like if you see like a big lifted Chevy truck, you'll see that front straight axle sitting down there, or even axle just hanging out really low. And that's because it doesn't have portal axles. You lift that thing back up in place with an engine that's in line. Now you have an issue with the drive shaft coming forward and coming in contact with the oil pan and the actual engine. So they offset the engine over, allows the drive shaft to come in over on the other side. That's also why they have offset half shafts, or different size half shafts. The differential is offset over to the driver's side. So if you can kind of imagine this, you got the engine here, and then you've got, instead of normal differential right in the center here, it's actually offset over here, which creates a short half shaft here on the driver's front wheel, and then a long half shaft on the passenger front wheel. So that's another complication with the truck, in that for severe off-roading, you now have to carry 3 half shafts, or 3 axles. One for the rear because they're equal length back there, and then 2 for the front because they're unequal lengths. You have a short one over there and a long one over here. So that's an issue with the engine over here. They also offset the engine to give the driver in the original Humvee a little bit more room over there. When they were going through the testing process, they actually said, hey, we want to have a little bit more room for the driver. So they changed the original design, which was like 1979, I think. I'm sure there's going to be some history buffs out there. If you could comment below, let us know what year that was. But the original design, I think, was 1979, and it actually had less room over there and more of an equal room for the passenger. So then, obviously, coming over here, and as you guys know, sitting in a Hummer on the passenger seat, there's not a whole lot of room. You're sitting in here pretty tight, and really the best seat in the house is that driver's seat over there, traditional driver's seat, not the right-hand drive driver's seat. So that's an issue to deal with as well, and that's why the master cylinder and the braking stuff is going to be kept over there, and why this is more complicated on this truck rather than like a normal Chevy truck or any traditional vehicle. So a lot of work going into this. Custom doghouse here actually looks pretty cool. I dig it. It's all vinyl wrapped. Doesn't look bad. And I think we're going to run this system. Obviously you got your HVAC controls, single DIN stereo up here. Pretty decent job overall. So we can definitely work with that. Overall, nice interior, no issues at all. And then obviously the shifter is going to come over here, which also creates another dilemma in getting that information, or those shift controls over to the other side. So that's what we're going to be working on next, with longer shift levers that reach over there properly, and you can control the transmission as well as the transfer case. So that's kind of it in a nutshell on the inside here. I say we get the body up in the air and you can see the bottom side of this truck. This still has a lot of work to go, so we'll keep you updated here on this build, but we have some other stuff coming up with the exoskeleton as we get that wrapped up, as well as a treat for you next week. I think maybe Jason and I are gonna head out to the Ansebrego Desert. For us in Southern California, that's kind of like the epicenter for off-roading. How far is Ansebrego Desert from us here? Probably like
2 hour and a half.
Hour and a half to 2 hour
the way you drive?
Yeah, hour and 5 minutes, 30 minutes. So we're gonna be out there in like 35 minutes tops, do some off-roading. Maybe we'll get Jason behind the wheel of a Hummer and show him how to off-road a vehicle as opposed to street driving, because that's kind of what he does. We'll have to change up his shoes though, get him some boots on there instead of his like fancy.
My shoes.
You got fancy street shoes.
I got my old school Adidas shell toes.
So anyways, thanks for watching, folks. Definitely appreciate it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. And anything else you want to say, Dazzle?
Nope.
Now,
See you next
say
week.
Hi to your fans?
Huh? Oh,
Say hi to your
sure.
fans.
Yeah. I'll see you next week.